I wanted to first kind of give you the story of why in the world did I start doing this thing in the first place, and then you can kind of understand what happened. So, for all the time we were doing all of the Zoom sessions and the Zoom lessons and all that, and even for my local session, I would want to have handouts or lesson handouts or that sort of thing. And what I was using for that was this site, which you probably, maybe some of you have seen. This is the mandolintab.net site. I'd been using this for years. It was a great tool. This was a fantastic site because it could do conversions and tune books, and it produced really pretty output, and it could do one tune or multiple tunes, and it made PDF. It did everything I needed, and so the typical thing would be like, you'd get like, I don't know, you'd go to the session.org's tune area, and you'd find some ABC for a tune, and you would copy it, and then you would come over here to the ABC converter and paste it in. This might be a starting point for tune, and then what you would click is submit, and then it would generate some. You'd see some notation up here. Well, this started happening back in November. See where it says unauthorized? Yeah, this broke, and it's been broken since I think last November. And this guy here, Simon Becker, cannot. No one seems to be able to find him or contact him, and the problem is that not only is it broken, but you see how it says up here, abcconverter.php? That PHP means that this code, the code that actually runs this site, is running on some server somewhere. The browser is just gathering up the data from the user, and then it's sending it off to a server. The server is doing all the work, and then it's coming back with the image for the music. So this code, whatever's running this code, is off on some server that this guy Simon Becker controls, and or maybe he doesn't anymore. And so you can't even fix this. Like, you can't go scrape this page, try to figure out how it works, because the server code isn't available. And so I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I need to be able to generate tune books, and and I need a tool, something I have some control over. So I decided a couple of things. One is I started researching what was available, other tools, and I was specifically looking for something that didn't rely on a server. In other words, where all of the code ran entirely inside the browser. And the reason for that is that if you have something like that, it means that you are no longer beholden to anybody else for your transcriptions. It means the tool runs on your browser, on your system. You're not reliant on anybody else. If their server goes down or whatever, you forever have the ability to. It's kind of like buying software and installing it on your system versus running it in the cloud, right? It's one thing to run Word on your own computer. You have Word files, you can edit them. Like, you could be completely offline and edit them, versus using Microsoft 365 or whatever it's called in the cloud. If you don't have internet connection, maybe you can't use it. So that's kind of a distinction. I wanted something that was more like running Word on your own computer than running it in the cloud. Except I wanted it to be completely web-based. I didn't want you to have to install an executable, because that's just not how things are done anymore. The other thing is that I started doing some research, and then I found that there were a number of websites that were all using this tool called ABCJS. And ABCJS is a library of code, JavaScript code. JavaScript is the language, sort of the native language of your browser for writing programs. And it was a completely JavaScript-based way of generating notation. And I was like, this is interesting. So I started to build a tool that used this library. This guy, Paul Rosen, wrote it. And I was really impressed with it. And I just started to do something to just sort of meet my own needs as a replacement for this now broken ABC converter site. So, this thing started off very simple, and it's kind of went crazy over the 3 months. But the idea was that I wanted something that would meet the needs primarily. Again, of course, my focus is going to be for traditional Irish music, although ABC itself is a very robust way of representing music in general. We use a very small subset of what's possible in Irish music, and Paul Rosen's code does a great job. I mean, it's capable of doing things way beyond what we'd ever do with Irish music. So I wanted something that was as easy to use as the ABC converter site. I wanted it to produce extremely high quality output. I wanted it to be able to produce PDF files, because that's the way we pass things around primarily. And I wanted it to be able to handle multiple tunes, tune books and that sort of thing. So here's the tool in its current state. And a couple of things. It's just a website, so you can go to that URL, but you can even shorten that to just michaeleskin.com/ABC, and it'll redirect to this site. And so it's a web page. And a couple things. Well, first thing is to see is that before we even talk about how to use it, there's a user guide link here. And the user guide takes you to this very detailed document that explains every feature and has videos for almost every feature, and goes into depth on everything you can do with this thing. And so I always encourage people to please, take a look at the user guide at some point. But a lot of the stuff that you just normally is pretty straightforward. So when you first come in, it's extremely clean. It's like there's nothing here. You could just start typing ABC. Now, I don't know, Ken, do you know what it, I mean, you know about ABC? Do you understand basically what it is? Same thing for Alex, Martha. Do you understand the basics of ABC?
I do. I've done a little, but I'm not an expert by any means.
Sure. So, I mean, we can just look at a quick example of a simple ABC tune here. So they always start with this little X tag. These are called tags, these things with the colons, and they just have an X tag with a number, and that's just so you can have numbers in a tune book if you want to identify them that way. So they always start with an X tag. We kind of use that to separate different tunes. The T tag is for the title. This is generally what you'll see at the top of all of them. An R tag for the rhythm, the meter, so this is in 6/8, what the bass kind of unit of the beat would be is eighth notes, and then the key. And that's used just to generate the key signature. And then you have the actual notes for the tune. And it really couldn't be much simpler. The lowercase letters represent the first octave on your instrument generally. The uppercase letters. The lowercase letters represent the second octave. The numbers represent the unit, note length, generally in eighth notes. So this would be like a dotted quarter note, 3/8 notes. These would be quarter notes for 2. Let's see, the vertical lines represent the bars in the music. These represent the repeat. It's kind of, you can kind of look at it and kind of say, oh, that looks kind of like a repeat. These little symbols here, that's a sharp. So that's a C sharp instead of a C, because this is in G major. This is a case where they want you to play C sharp, and then there's a different notation for flat. To go below the first octave and above the first octave, above the second octave, there's additional, let's see, okay, so for example, like this one, you can see has a low B, and you can see that it's notated here with this little comma. The comma means 1 octave lower, 2 commas would be 2 octaves lower, and so on. And then notes above that go into the third octave would have little apostrophe signs after them instead of a comma, and then 2 apostrophes would be 2 octaves up. You don't see that too commonly. We don't generally go, you'll see the commas more often because tunes generally, if they go down into the G string of the fiddle, those notes are going to be down below the first octave. So a very common type of thing would be, let's say you're putting together a set. So you would maybe go here and say, I want to do the Keshen Morrison. So you might start off with a version from the session.org. This thing's acting weird. It's not letting me select. There we go. Okay, so I could copy this, and then I'll just come back to the tool here, and I'll just paste it into the tool. And you'll see immediately you get notation here on the right. Now, if you're on your computer and it's looking like, sorry, let's blow that up again. If you're on your computer and it's looking like this, where it's down below, and that's also what it looks like on an iPad. But if you're on your computer and you don't get the side-by-side, then what you can do is you can just zoom out on your browser. Eventually it'll pop over to the right. And that's a nice view. You'll get the notation on the left and the notes on the left, the ABC on the left, and then the notes on the right. Any changes you make over here immediately show up on the right, right? So if I want to make this GAG, you can see immediately over here it shows up. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to just repaste in the original there. And, and I'll just go grab another tune from the session. We'll go back and get Morrison's. Let's see, where was Morrison's? There's Morrison's. And let's see, I don't like that version. Let's pick a different version. Boy, some people have interesting versions of Morrison's. Yeah, okay, let's do that one. Okay, so there's Morrison's. We'll copy that. You could put together a whole tune book this way. Paste it in here. You can see now we get the second tune down below. Now, the question is, okay, well, what do you want to do with it at this point? Most common thing would be is you'd want to create a PDF file to get to send to somebody else. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to say show controls. And because I generally want to keep it clean. The reason I hide them is that once you set these things, generally they stick. Whenever you make a change in any of the settings, those settings are saved in your browser. And the next time you run the tool, those settings come up exactly the same way. So this gives you a whole bunch of options for things you can do. So for example, we're looking at standard notation here, but you have other options. You could look at this as mandolin tab, or bouzouki tab, or guitar tab, or dadgad guitar tab, or even whistle tab, okay? So this allows you to change if you're a mandolin player, maybe you want that. If you're handing out to people who don't know how to read music and just want the note names, there's an option to do that too. But we'll just leave it in sheet music. And most of the things here are, things that can affect the entire music. So for example, if I wanted to transpose everything up, let's say this is in G, I could just say transpose up, and it's going to take it half a step up. And now we're in, I'm sorry, I was still selecting Morrison's. Let me bring Morrison's down. It does it just on basically what's selected. I'll go ahead and select everything and just say transpose up. And now this is in the key of A, and that's a different key, that sort of thing. So you can do, these are things you can do with the, kind of with the whole collection of tunes. But if you just wanted to transpose just the cache, and you wanted to transpose the cache to the key of, let's say we transpose it down to D, we could just bring it down to B. Let's see, now we're in F, now we're in E, now we're in D, right? So it just transpose the cache. Wherever the cursor is, it'll transpose the tunes or a group of tunes in a selection. So you can do easy transposes that way. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back up to G. Okay. So so this is handy. A lot of times people want to transpose stuff. So the next main thing that people are going to do, besides editing the tunes, is they're going to want to create tune books. And I'm going to open up a bigger set of tunes here. Let's say, let's bring up the sleeve notes polkas. These are all the sleeve all the sleeve notes polkas we play on the Zoom session. And you can see this is more tunes. And this thing can handle hundreds of tunes. It's really, really fast at doing that. You can see here, so we've got all of the tunes on the left, we've got the notation on the right. The other thing you can do, if you just want to see the notation up in the corner here, this arrow, you can click that. It'll take away the user interface and give you just the tunes. You click it again, so it clicked it. Look at the tunes, click it down, brings you back. Okay, so here we have a bunch of tunes. Now, one thing I wanted to show you is when you click on a tune over here, like the Anabag, you see it pops to the top on the right. This makes it really easy, especially when you're working with a lot of tunes, like hundreds of tunes. Trying to you don't want to have to click here and then scroll to find your tune, 100 tunes. It'll immediately pop that tune to the top Okay, and it goes the other way too. If you're down here and click on the new market, it'll at least try to make the new market visible on the left. So if I go back up to the top, Blackwater, click on the Blackwater, yeah, the Blackwater's sitting at the top. At least try to get it somewhere into the text there so you don't have to search through. Because like I say, I've worked with tune books with over 500 tunes, and it's interesting how navigation gets much more complicated. Oh, the other thing too I didn't mention is this top area is resizable, so you can stretch it if you want more room or less room. So this is just like your basic navigation through the tunes. Now, let's say we want to make a tune book of this. We want to hand it out to everybody. Okay, the first decision you want to make is what's the paper size you want to use, and do you want just one tune on every page, or do you want me to try to put as many tunes as will fit on a page? And I don't break tunes across pages unless unless one tune has got so many parts that it has to take multiple pages, then it will break across pages. But generally what it'll try to do is it'll try to fit, if you say multiple, this is just the paper size letter, or A4 for the folks in Europe. It'll just put one tune per page. So every tune will start on the new page. Multiple will try to fit as many tunes on a page as possible. So let's just say, we'll just say multiple letter, and I'm going to take out a little directive here I noticed it shouldn't be there.
Michael, does it break tunes up between pages then? Or does it try to, if it doesn't fit, will it?
It doesn't fit, it'll put the next tune on the next page.
Okay.
And you'll see an example of that there on this one. Okay, so we can say a multiple letter, so that's going to use letter format, letter size PDF pages, and it's going to try to put multiple tunes per page. And then if you want a page number, you have options on where to put the page number. I'm going to just put it at the top right. Some people, if they're doing dual side printing, may want it to alternate between left and right. So you have these options as well at the bottom here. That's more for people who do dual side printing. Some people don't want a page number on the first page. I happen to like having a page number on the first page, so that's an option. So with that, okay, so we got a PDF. This is all about PDF setup. So multiple tunes per page number on the top right, and page number on the first page. And I'm going to just go ahead and click Export PDF. It'll ask you for a name. And it'll just go ahead and generate that PDF. And this is a Firefox that shows it to you. So you can see now this is a PDF file. It'll be in the downloads, wherever your downloads for your browser go. Usually it's the downloads directory. So now this is a PDF file, and you can see it formatted when it could. It put multiple tunes per page, and page number in the upper right, right? And so this is a nice start, right? And it looks nice. It's nicely spaced. It's very, very fairly high resolution. I'm rendering this, I think, at 600 dpi. There's some options for actually doing it at lower and higher resolution. Okay, so like this would have been sufficient. This is the equivalent of what the old ABC converter site could do for me. I don't think it even did page numbers, but I thought, okay, this is great. Well, then I thought, well, what do people really want to do with this kind of thing? What they really want is, not only do they want the tunes, but if it's a PDF tune book, it's your local session, you have a PDF tune book. Well, maybe you want a table of contents. Maybe you want an index. Especially if you got a lot of tunes, right? Maybe you want a title page, right? So I started adding the ability to do that. And I'm going to open up another version of this same tune book here. Oh, the other thing too is you can save this. So for example, after you've entered all your tunes, you can just save the ABC file, and then you can load that back later in the tool here. So like if I'm going to save this basic, we're going to call it basic 4, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and reload this page. And you can see now if I open it, I go to my downloads directory, there'll be basic 4, and I can just load that in. And you can see that all of the settings down here are the way they were before. Again, multiple letter, top right, saves that for you. So you don't have to set it up every time. So that's why by default, I kind of, once you set it up once, if you use the same settings, like for me, I'd be using the same settings for my PDF files. I don't have to change the controls. I won't talk about the play just because I'm not sending the audio to the thing, but you can actually play these tunes. Uses a separate website. Actually, I'll show that to you later. let's see here. Great. So I'm going to open up a different version of the same file. It's going to be the same tunes, but it's going to have a little bit more information at the top. And let's go into my sleeve notes demo. Okay. So take a look at the top here. Here's all the tunes. The tunes are the same before. Everything works the same way. If I click here, it shows up there. If I click here, it shows up here. But at the very top, there's a whole bunch of new text. And these are specific to my tool. Anything that starts with a single percent sign in ABC is considered a comment, okay? And it's ignored by any other tool. The idea was to be able to add commands, stuff that isn't in the ABC specification. So the ABC specification is very, very broad in terms of laying out the spacing and the fonts and the creating the music, but it really isn't, it doesn't really have much about like the sort of metadata that you need for typesetting a tune book. So like it doesn't really have a concept of a title page or subtitles or page numbers or anything like that, right? So anything like that I wanted to do, I sort of had to make up my own system that would allow you to very easily add the kinds of things you would want to make a tune book, but I also wanted it so if you took this ABC file and brought it into some other tool, it wouldn't break it. And so the idea was to come up with some very specifically formatted comments that, if you open this in, ABC Navigator, any of the number of tools, or anybody else's website, it wouldn't break the other tool. They would just look like comments. So I just want to talk about these comments here. So they all start with a percent sign, and they all start with generally a word. And I try to make them pretty obvious, like add title. And this will add a title page with that as the title. Add subtitle. This will put a subtitle under that title on the title page. Add table of contents, add TOC. This will add a table of contents at the front with this as the header for the table of contents. This will add up index page at the end. In this case, it's sorted. Some people want their table of contents to be in the order that the pages are, and they want the index to be the tunes in. Yes, Martha. You'll need to unmute. I can't hear you. Martha, did you have a question?
No, it was a random touch.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. Let's see here. Put the hand down. Whoops. Sorry about that. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So, again, people want different things. As I was finding out, they want their indexes sorted, but they want their table of contents in the order of the tunes. But some people actually want it the other way. They want the table of contents sorted. They like to be an index at the front. People wanted, you might want a header at the top of each page on the notes, and you might want a footer. Maybe you have a link to your website, or you have some copyright data that you want there. I'll talk about the QR code one in a little bit. So just by adding these directives to the top of the ABC, now if I do the export PDF, you'll see that we get the same notation, but now we've got a full tune book. So now we have title page. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. We have title page with that title and the subtitle. We have table of contents, and we have the tunes. We have page numbers in the upper right, and we go to the very end. We have an index page, and you can see this is in sorted order, and it even is smart enough to, like, if the tune starts with the, it'll put the at the end and sort it by the name, so you don't just end up with like a million thes in the middle of the index, right? The other thing too about these index pages and table of contents pages is that they're live, so you can actually click on. If you want to go to the Annabeg, you can just click on it, right? Same thing with the index pages. Index pages are live, so I want to go to Walsh's, goes right there. Okay, so for anybody a lot of people bring like their iPad now to a session or something, and they want to like go directly to a tune. They can just go to their index page, click on the tune, it takes it right to the tune. And this is kind of the main, at this point we're sort of at the 90% use case for the for the tool. If we wanted to have the same tune book, but it was for the whistle players, we just change it to whistle. We'll say export PDF. Tries to make some intelligent naming for the tune book, so you can remember, oh yeah, this is the whistle version. But you can change that when you say export. You can enter a different name. And because these are bigger, it's going to take more pages. So again, same thing: title page, table of contents. And now we've got the tune book with whistle notation instead, right? Let's see. Okay. So, so to this point, any questions so far?
Yeah, I have a few.
Sure.
I'll put them in the chat because that way I can just go back to them, because I've been just sort of keeping note of things that have been coming into my head just to. So when you've done, like, you've got they've actually all sort of printed out, and they've left some weren't able to put more than one tune on a page. So on those pages, are you able to add like an image or text as a filler? If you want to go back and, like, if you were publishing, right, you might want to put something in that area as a little story on the tune or an image.
You can do that. You can do that with ABC itself has the idea of just like text stuff. Let me bring up I've got a friend's. Let me bring up like this is what's cool about ABC is it's pretty robust. So like you see how this has some text down below the tunes here. So it is possible to put text in ABCs that would show up in the tune book. What I would do is probably refer you to the ABC standard and find some examples of where, let's see here, let me find a good one.
It was just for like publishing purposes. Like if you're looking at it as a full thing, right?
Yeah.
Just it'd be nice to.
Yeah, it's possible in ABC itself to do this sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because I've seen that in tune books where there's like little stories about the tunes and stuff like that you might want to. And I mean, there's always those interesting notes on the session about like where a tune sourced from. So it might be nice to stick that little bit of trivia in on that tune, because if you're at a session, it just, oh, right, I forgot about that. And be able to.
Yeah, it's possible in ABC to add text to tunes for sure.
So can you add images?
No, you can't add images. If you wanted to add images, you probably need to do it like bring the tune book into something like Adobe Acrobat and just manually add the images. You'd have to bring it into a PDF editor.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And so I was gonna add. I was asking about adding paragraphs as a C command as well for the actual overall setting up of the thing. So I mean, I was thinking in the fillers on the pages, but also like, can you add a paragraph at the start of the book where you've got the index and title page, but then maybe have.
I see. You probably could do it with sort of a dummy tune and then text associated with that dummy tune.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't have a specific way in my stuff to do that. I just did the page, just basically the title and subtitle, but not a way to put in like a whole block of text independent of what's possible with ABC itself. I think the directive would be like, I think it's text. So you could do something like this. Oops, I can't type. So, for example, you could have something like I'm going to make a fake tune here, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to take away like all of the notes. Let's see what we get. Yeah, and we'll get rid of this. And now what we have, we can get rid of this, and we can get rid of this. Oops. Probably need the meter. Well, I probably don't need the meter, so you could probably just do something like that. Yeah, and then you could just have a bunch of text here.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I know the most important thing here is about the music, but I was just curious how to manipulate that.
The thing to realize is that ABC is a really robust standard.
No, I don't think I fully understood that up until this.
And you can even have it centered. Like, this is not me. This is actually just ABC itself can do this kind of thing. If you're interested in the ABC spec, it's like you want to find out how deep it is, and it's a really, really deep spec. Is if you look on the very top here, there's a link to the spec, and this is the whole standard and everything it can do. And so it's kind of fun to just read through this and see what's possible. The part you'd be interested in probably would be like down when they start talking about text strings and lyrics and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really, really powerful. It's amazing what's possible with it.
And I have one last question, and then I'll shut up.
Yeah.
So you've obviously been working on this, and you probably have your own personal tune book that you have all the tunes that you play and stuff like that. Do you ever share that with anybody?
I actually don't. I should probably do something like that. I've had tune books from previous sessions I did like 10, 20 years ago, but I haven't really like republished them. I do have one book. I do, because this is a book that I use for my box playing stuff. And this is if I have this thing where I wanted to put together arrangements of tunes for BC box players that shows the bass and the chord buttons. And I'm using the chord feature of ABC to do this. And so this is an example of that. This is like all of the tunes that I have in that tune book. But this was very specifically for BC box players. And of course, I'm more than happy to share this around. A lot of these are tunes we play in the session. Yeah. Yeah, it's super easy. I mean, and I was going to say, like, I can bring in, like, here's, let's see, where's a big tune book? Like, here's 100 reels. And you can see, like, it's pretty quick to generate the notation for 100 reels, right? And the change, when it makes a change, like when you make a change here, so for example, if I make a change, I'm going to change that first note. I'll change that first note from a G to an A. It just changes that one tune. It doesn't re-render the whole tune book. So it's very, very efficient about working with very large sets of tunes. I do want to show you a couple of variations on a theme here. So let's go back to, well, we'll leave this one up. So we've got 100 reels here, and it shows you right here, it says there's 100 tunes in this set. The other thing that people want is they'll want what are called incipits or incipits. And the idea with incipits is it's kind of like, well, the most common thing that people used to have is they would just have like the first 4 measures of the tune actually in the ABC format in the tune book. So I'm going to copy all of this, which is nice because if you can copy, all just copies everything on here. You can paste it somewhere else. I'm going to open up that tune book again with the headers and footers and stuff. That was the sleeve notes demo. I'm going to just paste in the 100 tunes. And let's just, we'll just call this demo. And we'll just call the subtitle Incipits Demo. And the header will just have incipits, similar type of thing. Okay, and I'll get rid of this for now. Okay, so here I have 100 tunes, and I want to create like a cheat sheet, right, for those 100 tunes. I don't want the whole tune book. I don't want to generate, I could tell it, go ahead and export PDF, and let's see. No. I don't want to show this yet. Let me take it out of incipits. Let me just do multiple. Okay, so if I did this export PDF, it would sit there and crank out 100 tunes of all the tunes. I'm going to just cancel that. So let's say instead of doing the whole tunes, which it'll do just fine, we wanted to just get the first 4 measures of each tune in a list, very concise. We could just change this PDF tunes per page to ABC incipits, letter, so it's going to be a letter-sized page. And we'll export the PDF. And now what we'll get is something a little different. So we have the title page, and we still have our table of contents page to the 100 tunes. But now you can see what we get is a list of the tunes by name and just the first 4 measures. And this is the actual ABC. Okay, so this is a ABC in Kipit's cheat sheet, right? And these index and all, they also work. You click on cup of tea, it'll take you to the page with cup of tea on it. The other kind of in-Kipits that people want is they want the actual notation for the first 4 measures. So that's another option, note in-Kipits or snippets. So you just change this to note in snippets, export the PDF, and now what we'll get is going to take a little while because it actually is rendering. It is actually rendering the notation for those tunes. Just a piece of the notation, a lot faster than the full notation. And now what you'll see is same thing, table of contents, but instead of the letters, what we're going to get is this. Okay. And so now we actually have the sheet music for the first 4 measures, essentially the first line of each of those tunes. So some people like this. I try to provide it, right? That can be very handy. The in-Kipits can be very, very handy. Let's see, other things. Yeah, so that's the other main thing, is to create the in-Kipits, and that's all under these PDF tunes.
Sorry, can the in-Kipits link to the full tune as well? Is that something?
No, there's nothing like that.
Sorry, I'm just pushing.
No, it's okay. That's okay. No, I mean, usually the situation is, typically you have like tune. The way I've noticed that people use things is they'll have a tune book, like for a session where people read out of a book, and they'll just all go to the same page and they'll read out of the book. And then a lot of people, as they get hundreds of tunes in their heads, instead of having to need to have the whole tune, they just need something to jar their memory, and that's where the cheat sheets come in. So I think they're 2 very different use cases. I mean, for at least the majority of the people that
I think I'm sort of in the middle of those 2 places still. So
Yeah,
not quite one or the other. So.
Oh, you could have probably, you'd have 2 books. You'd have the full tune book and then Kipit's book. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to show you, I don't think the sound will come through, but I'm going to show you. Let's see. I think that's everything on the basic layout. There are a lot of directives that are possible. So I'm going to delete these and just show you. There's a little trick, and this is outlined in the book, because there's so many of these that it's hard to remember them. If you hold down your Shift key and just click on this little thing here, it'll inject every possible option for the annotation up at the top here, and then you can just kind of delete and modify the ones that you want. One of the more interesting ones that I've added recently is, this is kind of fun. I'm going to just get rid of everything here except for the these guys here. There's oh, sorry. That's what I want. I want the URL versions. So there's ones that I just added just in the last couple of weeks, and I think these are kind of fun. There's a lot of spacing options. Like people wanted they wanted more control over the spacing between things on the font sizes and all that. So you can ignore most of this you would never care about, but there are a couple that are kind of cool, and it's these variants of the page, the title, subtitle, and I think there's title, subtitle, and page header and page footer. And these are where, when it generates the PDF file, what it's going to do is it's actually going to make those headers and footers and subtitles and stuff links. So I'll make the title we'll make that test. So these have the exact same format as the ones that don't have the URL, that's name URL in the front, except that you put the link as the very first thing you have after that is a link, and then you just have whatever would go into the title page. So if I generate, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to get rid of a bunch of tunes here just to speed things up a little bit. So we just have 10 tunes. Now I'm going to go ahead and generate this PDF. Actually, I don't want it to be insipid, so we'll make it multiple letter. And I think this is kind of cool. So now it'll look exactly the same, except these are now actually hyperlinks, the top and bottom. So if I click on the title, it's going to take me to CNN.com. I thought that was kind of cool. Like if people wanted to link back to their, to their the group on Facebook, for example, for their tune book or something, they could have it built right into the tune book. That was something I added just like 2 weeks ago. It was kind of fun. I think that's everything on the basic like layout. I mean, if you wanted to, here's just one kind of fun, like here's a bunch of tunes. They're in some random order. If you wanted to sort them, you could just sort them. This will sort them by name. That's an option. Sometimes, this is kind of fun. If you, so you've got all this stuff, and it's got text below it, and I'm trying to think of other things that are here we might want to get rid of. Okay, here's this here. Sometimes you may want to strip that stuff out when you create a tune book. You just want the bloody notes, or you don't want the chords. It's a really common one. So for example, I'll open up my tune book that has all the chords in it, right? So it's got chords, and you may want to strip those out for the tune book. You do want a version without chords. So there's some advanced features here. If you click Show Advanced, and you can see there's some options here: hide annotation, hide text, hide chords. So for example, if I click this, it's going to actually not show the chords in the music. So these are some options that are kind of more on the advanced side. That's why they're under this advanced controls. Hide annotations, that'll do things like hide all of those headers. And these can be very handy when you're trying to cram as many. If you notice, like when I take out the chords, you can see that the music gets more compact. And when I hide the annotations, the music gets more compact. And these features were primarily for people who want to put as many tunes on the page as possible. There are even some overrides here where you can reduce the spacing on the staffs. These are all kind of under the advanced tab, and normally you would not need to use them, but they are handy and they are available to you there. But by default they're not shown. Let's see. And here's another cool one. Let me open up that sleeve notes one again. So if you're a mandolin player and you, let's say, actually guitar would be better, and you want to play it with a capo at a particular position, there's actually an option to set a capo, and it'll move the fingerings you can see it's changing the fingerings based on the capo position. These are all based on kind of, if you think about guitar or mandolin, obviously you have multiple notes in multiple places. These are based on what I would call like a first position solution. So, they may not be the best fingerings. They probably are for mandolin. They're going to be in your standard first position kind of, offsets. The guitar, I've had guitarists say, well, that's not the way I would do it. And it's like, well, it's doing the best it can. So yeah, those are the advanced features. But again, probably not something that, it's kind of a special case to use those. That's the basics of all of the layout and, editing features. Most cases you set up something like, these headers, you put in all your ABC, and you just save the ABC file, you load it back into the tool. All of these settings get maintained every time you run it. So oftentimes, you don't even need to show the controls. You just do your editing and export your PDF, and you're done. Let's see. If you even want more room on your screen, you can click that. That'll collapse the top. You don't want all these links. Again, the user guide link is here. Let's see. Probably the next thing, before I go on, because I do want to show you the sharing features, which I think is really one of the coolest things about this system, and I think it's one of those things when the light goes on and people understand what's possible with it, then it's like, whoa. So I'm trying to spread the word a little bit about it because it's pretty cool. So before we go into that, any other questions about just basic layout and PDF generation? And again, I'm going to refer you to the user guide, which has everything in detail and videos of things that, as much as I was able to kind of capture the basic basic operation.
Any plans to add other instruments, or is that pretty much the cap?
You know, the one thing that it would be lovely to add, but is problematic, is ukulele. Because of the way ukuleles are tuned, the ABCJS itself can't solve the problem because they have a high note in the middle of the, you know, most stringed instruments, you know, generally they start in a low note and every string is higher than the previous one. Well, instruments that have reentrant tunings like ukulele, it's challenging to figure out how you would actually come up with with tablature for it, or how a computer would solve the tablature for it. So I was talking to Paul about that, and he's trying to think about how you would tell his stuff, like which string to put some particular notes on, or how to solve that problem. So that's something that could be there. I'm personally not planning on adding any other instruments. One of the things I did do was, like, if you look in the user's manual, there's a whole bunch of like power user tips. So for example, one of the things is, like, if you hold down the shift key and click on note names, it'll actually inject the note names as lyrics into the music. So if you want this kind of a view of the music where the letters are underneath the notes instead of, let's go back and open up that set again. I should have just copied it and pasted it. Instead of using this view of the note names, that's another option. There's a whole bunch of like semi-crazy stuff in the user guide that's sort of backdoor power user stuff for particular people asked for particular features. So I'd say, yeah, no, these are variations on mandolins. His tablature is essentially designed for stringed instruments. So, and then somebody figured out a cool way to do whistle font and to inject these glyphs into the notation. So I took advantage of that system. Any other questions on the basic page layout and PDF generation?
Yeah, I've got a real simple one,
Yeah.
Michael. In order for me to make much use of this, for one of the groups that I go to, they're going to want chords. So could you take like a simple tune, I don't know, Cash Jig or something,
Sure.
go to the notes and show me how you put the chords
Oh,
on?
yeah, it couldn't be easier. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
so the way that chords work in now, it'll provide the chord names. It doesn't do the like guitar, little grid chords. It just puts the chord names in. So basically, it couldn't be easier. Anywhere you want a chord, you just type in quotes that.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So there we go. We got G, and then let's see, this would be D,
Uh-huh.
and then C,
C, G, C, G.
and then something like that, right? Yeah, that's how you do chords in ABC. Couldn't be simpler.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and lyrics there's a similar way of doing vocal lyrics, but I don't do too much of that. But yeah, this is all just part of the ABC standard. Makes it super simple to do. And I reused it in my tune book. I used it, the idea being that I wanted to be able to like distinguish between the bass buttons and the chord buttons on the accordion. So I used like lowercase letters for the chord buttons, and that was just my thing. But whatever you type here, it'll just stick above that note. Right? It's completely like, it doesn't care. But what does care is there is software, that will play, that will play the tune, and they know how to understand the chords, and they will put the right chords in, which is kind of cool. So let me, I didn't really talk about playback. Let me bring up like Kesh and Lilting here. Okay. So, again, my focus was primarily on replacing the or it was replacing this ABC converter site, and it was just for creating tune books. I'm really not interested. A lot of people, they want to be able to play the tunes, and I didn't want to take that on. And the reason I didn't want to take that on is because there are much better websites that already do playback. And I wonder if I can possibly share my audio. Let's see here.
If you unshare and then share again, and you just click on share audio, as it's at the bottom corner,
Okay, let me try it. I haven't done that on this Mac. Hopefully it'll work.
should be at the bottom as you're going to share. There should be a bottom.
Share sound. I just don't want it to like feedback my own.
Yeah, it's sometimes a bit wonky because of our other sound systems, but try it anyways.
Okay, well, we'll try that. See what happens. So you're still seeing the music, right?
Right.
Okay, so if I click in the tune, like the Lilting Banshee, and I click on play, what it's going to do is it's going to open up that it's going to find that tune, it's going to copy that tune, it's going to put it in this website, okay? And it's interesting. This is a website by Paul Rosen. It's based on ABC.js. He built his own, this is his own like demo page, and it has the nice feature in that you can play tunes. Okay. And what's nice is that if you make a change, you go, well, I want, I'm going to change that to A2. So you can still edit stuff here, and play it. And that's a good thing. But what's nice is if you copy all this when you're done and you just go back to the editor, it's already selected. So you can just paste over it and get your changes over. I wanted to make it like as seamless as possible, but I didn't want to have to reinvent a playback system, right? And he had a really good one here already, which is nice. If we open up like one of these tunes that has, let's see if I have one that has, well, I'll tell you what, let's just go crazy. Let's just find a version of Morrison's on the session.org, and we'll bring that in. This one has chords in it already. We'll bring it in here. So we see we've got chords here. Let me just, I'm going to put it here because I want to show you something in a second here. Okay, so we've got, and I get rid of this first tune. Okay. So here we got a tune with chords in it. If I click on it and say play, I think his player will play it with the chords. All right, so it does that for you, which is really cool. The other thing that is nice is that you can set a little, this is a standard ABC thing. So if we want that to be a flute instead, we can put this little annotation here, MIDI program, and I believe we should now get a flute on that. Let's see. And if we wanted a fiddle, we could make it, I think it's 49, yeah. Let's play that one.
Michael, is that all listed in that overall document?
Yeah,
Going
it sure is, yeah. The other thing too is that if you just click New ABC, it gives you this, which gives you like almost, this is the most common. It sets you up a tune. It gives you like, it already puts the program number in there. It tells you here's some values you can change. And it gives you the options for the most common, like add title, add subtitle, and all that. And you can just uncomment these. So like, here's a tune. It's one tune. If we wanted a title page, we could just uncomment that. It tells you just take it down to one thing. And if I did the export PDF here, you would see we would get it like this one, tune book with a title page and the tune, right? So it tries to like, kind of templatize for you the most common settings. So you can always, the easiest thing is just look at the new ABC and take a look at the take a look at the things it sticks in for you here as options. And then all of those are, every bit of this is like the whole thing on playback. If you go into the user's guide, you can go to the top and just go to playing your tunes. And there's a demonstration video and talks about how to do it and talks about how to change the instrument for the tune, and it has a demo video. So like pretty much everything that I'm talking about, there's a lot of information in the user's guide. And I would highly suggest looking at that. Let's see. So that's the playback. Any other questions? Because I really want to talk a little bit about the sharing part of it, because the sharing part of it to me is actually the one thing that sets this tool apart from everything else in the world. I'm really trying to get people to understand what that's about. So any other just basic like playback, editing, PDF generation? Okay, so I wrote this thing and I got, and so all of this is, so the first thing you should know about this is that it's all absolutely free and it's all in the public domain. And it's all hosted on GitHub. And so this is the source code for the entire project. Anybody can go to this page, download this zip file, and just unzip it and run the abctools.html file on their local browser, and this thing will just work. There's nothing to install. It just runs in your browser. It's completely self-contained. It's completely free. You can modify this code if you're into that stuff. You can do whatever you want with it. You can make your own versions of this from there. This whole thing is like, the purpose of it was to like free the world from being held hostage to a tool, that's on somebody's server. So, why did I say that? Oh, I'm not sure why I said that, but anyway, yeah. So there's a link in the user's guide to the GitHub repository, just to say that anybody can modify it any way they want. Okay, so of course, now I know why. I was going to mention that. So I put it out there and I put it up on GitHub so other people could get access to it. And Philip, remember Philip was on our session the other night. Philip McGarvey, who's a fiddler, lives in the woods, Northern California. He used to work for Google, and he sent me a suggestion for a way to share the tunes. And the idea being that it's one thing, you could like make a PDF tune book and you could email that PDF to somebody. But he had this idea where you could actually like take all of the tunes and all the settings for all of the tunes and create a link where all of the information for recreating the tune book is entirely contained within that link. And so he sent me a suggestion for how to do it. He actually did it, and then I figured out a way to like make it sort of supercharge it so that we could put like 20 tunes in a link, and which was kind of crazy. And so if you look under here, under the controls, there's a show sharing controls. And you can see this creates a link, and this is it's a big link. But the thing about this link is that if you send this link to anybody, and they click on that link, and I'm going to actually click on that. So there's a thing here. It says, you can see there's a bunch of options: test share URL, copy share URL, save it. You can save it as a file and generate QR code. I'll just click on this. This is exactly what someone would see if you put this link, you copied the share link, and you put it in an email or put it in a post on Facebook. And sometimes I put these on Facebook, and people are like, "Oh, what is this?"
Or in the chat on Zoom. Can you put it there?
Yeah, I think you could. Yeah, you could totally put it in the chat on Zoom. I'm going to click on the test your share URL, and this is going to show you exactly what someone clicking on that share link will see. Okay, and you can see the first thing is it loaded up all of the tunes in the notation view, right? So immediately they have all of the tunes, like immediately. And this is not just an image. This is actually the entire editor. So if we now unzoom this, they now have the editor exactly as you had it when you created the tune book, Okay. So like all of the controls for the page numbers and everything that's here is exactly the same. So for example, if I was looking at Mandolin tab here and I said, just share URL, and you send that link to somebody, this is what they would see when they click on that link. And they now have the ability to edit. In other words, it actually loads up the editor. It actually launches the tool and it loads all of the text that was in the text area, and all of the settings for the entire editor. They now have the entire editor, a copy of the tune book, in an editable format that they can then, if they want, they say, well, I really like that, but I don't play mandolin. I want it in sheet music and I want a PDF for it, right? So they could then create their own PDF tune book in the format they want. Or if, so this was a way to create, so now they have a tune book in standard format. So this was a way of sharing, of being able to create a link that someone could click on. So if you're, for example, if you have a group and they have a tune book and you want to make it available to them, I mean, yeah, you could have a bunch of PDFs, but you could just have a link like this that has the tunes and the whole editor state kind of built into it. And I think that's a pretty cool way of sharing sharing tunes with people. So that's an option. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of like I've never seen anything quite like that. It's one thing to share. It's one thing to share a PDF, but it's another thing to actually share the ability to create the PDF. Right? That's a whole different thing. It's like the tune book knows how to recreate itself. But the other thing that was kind of interesting was the idea that I wanted the tune books to be able to have sort of the recipe for creating the tune books as part of the tune book. And that sounds kind of strange, but the idea is that if you had a way of sticking this link into, I mean, you could put this link, you could actually put this link and use that as one of those URL links in the header and footer. I haven't tried that. That would be kind of surreal. But you have the ability to add a QR code to the tune book. Now, let's talk about QR codes. QR codes, you're familiar with them, I'm sure. The little square patterns that you scan with your phone, and then it takes you to a link. It's a visual representation of any piece of information. Most commonly, it's a link to a web page. They are limited in how much data they can hold. I think the ones that I use can hold up to about 4K of 4,000 characters. So you can't, but links themselves in browsers are limited to a certain amount of size. So the sharing will work up to a certain number of tunes. I find it to be 25 tunes or so is about the limit to how big a share link can be before you exceed what a browser can consume. But the QR codes can be very handy for for sharing a small set of tunes or a smaller tune book. Just to show you, so if you click on Generate QR Code here, and if this link is small enough that it'll actually be shareable, these will light up. If these don't light up, it'll tell you that the thing's too big to generate a QR code. I'll show you an example of that in a second. But this one is small enough to generate.
Michael, could you combine that with a link shortener at some point in the future?
The problem with the link here's the problem with the link shorteners.
Yeah.
You have to pay for them. And I would have to rely on a third-party service. Right?
Right.
So, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And the problem is that if I hook this up to a link shortener, because it's all client-side code, now I've exposed my link shortener API key. And things can go very sideways. I did think about a link shortener service, and the beauty of it is because it's open source, someone could decide to create a version of this for their own use that had their own link shortener. But you could certainly run this into a link shortener. You could copy this and then go to some service. Maybe you get a free certain number of link shortens per month or something, and then create that and then distribute that link instead. I didn't want to build that into the tool because I wanted it to be completely vanilla client-side code. And I didn't want to depend on any. I wanted to not depend on any third-party service. Well, I use third-party libraries. It's all self-contained. It doesn't depend on any external service. So, so this is kind of cool. So one thing you can do is you can generate a QR code, and this QR code has all of those tunes and all the settings for the browser. This is a visual representation of the tune book. So this is the equivalent of one of those share links. And so you could just post this image on a website and say, scan this image, and it would take you to the tune book on your phone. But I really wanted to build it into the tune books themselves. So if you just add this little directive along with the, header, footer, all that, and then generate the PDF file, it will stick that QR code on the last page of the tune book. So you're sitting at the, you're at your session, and someone wants the tune book. You say, "Oh, okay, here, just scan that." And now they now have the share link with all the tunes on their phone. Then they could, share that back to they could email that link back to their desktop or whatever it is. It was just kind of a cool way to, essentially the tune books have the recipe for building the tune books in them, which I just think is like the coolest thing ever, to be honest. It's like self-replicating tune books. And I don't know if Zoom provides enough resolution in their screen sharing to be able to actually do that. But yeah.
Didn't we post the Zoom, the QR code in the chat one
I
day?
think we did one day, and it actually did work, yeah. The other thing is the iOS phones will handle these complex QR codes with no problem. I know on Android, it sort of depends on the model and the camera app involved. So we found that, like, I forget, some of the older phones, like the default camera app couldn't handle some of the more complex QR codes, but there was like a free reader. And certainly the newer, like Samsung phones and all, that can handle. But definitely the iPhones, like even an iPhone 6 can read a code like that. So yeah, so the QR cards are kind of cool, kind of a gimmick, but I think they're just super cool. We've done that before, where we've put up a tune set in a Zoom session and got everybody to scan it and grab it. It's kind of an interesting way to do. You could actually hack this. If you ever just wanted a generic QR code, you can just type anything in here, click generate QR code, and it will give you a QR code for it if you ever just need a QR code. If you have your own website and you do QR code, well, you could just use this to get it.
Awesome. I have a question. You said that you saw when people were using the tool, right? If they were generating like a really cool tune book, can you grab that as well? Do you have access to
No. I'll show you exactly what I have access to. Sorry. Let me just go into analytics here. So Google Analytics looks something like this. And this just tells me, like, for the last 7 days, okay, how many people have used it? 323 people. How long have they been on the site? 1 minute, 39 seconds. I only have information on like how many, like what page they've gone to and how long they've been there and what country they're from. That's it. I do get real-time data, which is kind of cool. This is standard Google Analytics. This is the only thing I only do this just to see, okay, so like right now, in the last 30 minutes, 3 people have used the tool. I love seeing this stuff.
Very cool.
But I'm not doing anything with this data at all. I'm not
Maybe for
tracking.
Nova Scotia?
Yeah, I'm not. Because you don't have access to it. But you can create events, like if I wanted to know how often someone clicked a button or something, I could set something like that. I'm not really interested in that detail. I'm just more interested in, like, how many people are using it each week and how long. The thing I find actually most interesting is this. It's like, how long, are people coming in? Are they actually spending some time on it? And it's fascinating to me, just to see, like, are the same people, because it will tell you kind of like how many people are new and how many, how many are kind of repeat customers. I'm not monetizing this in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I do have a donate link here. If people
Hey,
want
you
to,
do have a donate button. Is that on this at all? You okay, good.
yeah, it's right here. It'll take you to a page that's just like PayPal. I think I've gotten two donations since I started it. That's fine. I'm not doing this to make money. I did this because I needed this tool for my own purposes. And, and if other people find it useful, that's even better. And again, the focus being primarily on traditional music. There are ABC is such a robust standard. You can do multi-page score. You can do like multi-staff scores and really complicated. I'll give you an example. Like one woman was doing something like this. This is she was doing like classical guitar music. So this is one of her things that she did. I don't have any multi-staff stuff. Let's see here. Yeah. So what's nice about ABC is that it can do It can do like, and again, this is just ABC standard stuff. It can do ornamentation notation really easily. So you can see like again, this is not specific to my tool, but you can see like these, like this F, for example, we look at the first measure here. You can see that little D grace note. This is how you just indicate a grace note in ABC. And if you have multiple graces, like here, you just put all the notes inside the brackets. So like here is this. So it's really nice for doing whistle transcriptions. This happens to be a transcription of Nell Valley's concertina version of this tune. So that's a really nice thing about ABC. Let's see, and what else? I think anything specific about. Let me take a look at some of the other examples here. No, I think that's about it. Like I said, it can handle pretty big tune books.
I was going to say, if it is a big tune book, you would share it by just sharing the file to the big tune book.
Yeah. In that case, what you would do is just probably generate the PDF, or just send the ABC out to somebody. So for example, like here's like 386 tunes, and this is going to take a little bit to get to first render. Usually it's about 10 seconds, I think. Yeah. So that's almost 400 tunes that it did. And but what's nice is when you do an incipits export for something like this, it can be very, very fast. So like this will take just a couple seconds, right? Did 24 pages of incipits like that quick, right? Because it's just text, right? So if you get if you're taking one of those big Heinrich Norbeck collections and you just want a cheat sheet for it, it can do that really fast. And even if you're doing like the note incipits, this is kind of an extreme case here a little bit, because when it has to re-render, it has to strip everything. You can see it's doing about, it does about, what is it, about maybe 8 tunes per second. We'll let this one go through just to kind of show you this is not pushing the tool, but just to kind of give you a sense of the speed for doing very large tune books. So we'll just give it a couple minutes. It's going to take probably a minute to finish this. All right. Yeah, I think one day I tried putting 1,600 tunes through it and did the PDF export, and kind of walked away and came back. I took it, I forget how many minutes, maybe, I think it was under 10 minutes to do like a full PDF tune book with 1,600 tunes in it. I thought that was pretty amazing. Yeah, I was really wanted to stress test it. And it runs on Firefox, Chrome, Safari. It'll run on iPhone, iPad. So here we got, 400 tunes with the incipits. And all, let's see, did I put an index on it? Come on, Firefox. Yeah, I did. So if I click on these, it'll take you right to the page. Yeah. So it's pretty robust. It's stress tested pretty well. Yeah, it should handle your average, session tune book of 100 tunes pretty handily. Run that kind of stuff through it all the time. Like here's a whole collection of O'Carrollon tunes. And if you're looking for tunes, that's one thing to talk about. If you're looking for tunes, I generally go to thesession.org first. Go to the tunes section. They have a pretty good search. He has a pretty good search capability. You search for reels in the key of A Dorian, and you'll just find all the reels in A Dorian for you. Click on those. Generally, it shows you either the sheet music or there's an ABC tab. You can just copy this copy, and then paste that into the tool. The other, the other sources, these are all great sources. I would say just click through on these, you'll find everything. I mean, just anything you're looking for is going to be in one of these sources. I generally start on the session first. I had forgotten about Pete Strickler's site. He's got some nice pattern matching features in his that are pretty cool. ABC notation. This site's insane. It just has, links to every kind of French music, classical music, Scottish music, Swedish music, whatever. You'll find it here. There's just tons of links that come off of this to more tune books and more tune books and more tune books. So anyway, if you just click on the sources site, you can find some nice links for places to start. There's a link here to the standard, but that's also up on the main tool. And this is handy. Off of this page, there's a quick reference card link. It's a PDF that has all of essentially everything you need to know about ABC. This is not my tool. This is just the ABC standard itself. There's the actual specification that's available. Again, at the top, there's a spec here. You can just click on that, take you to that same page. But this little cheat sheet is very handy. If you're just kind of trying to remember, what do the tags mean? Not 100% of what is in here is necessarily supported 100% in ABCJS. So there may be some outlier, kind of uncommonly used directives or something in here that you may try and find that they don't work. So just be aware of that. It's kind of, I think there are some things related to scaling and that sort of stuff that just aren't supported by ABCJS, but the main stuff that you would use for doing traditional music is definitely all there and pretty robust. Let's see. Let me bring up maybe one more. So for example, I'll give you an example. So let's say you have a tune book like this. It's got all these chords in it, and you wanted to create a tune book. You didn't want the chords, and you wanted to put as many tunes on one page. You'd say multiple letter. We'll put a page number on the right. I'm not going to put a title page on this one, but I will put I'll put an index. So we'll just say add sorted index. Just that'll be the name at the top. We'll go ahead and strip out the, strip out the chords, get this down to just a minimum case, and say export PDF. And this is doing the full render. It's going to take a little bit, but this is a very typical kind of speed for a larger tune book.
while it's rendering, I can see my next project. When I first met you a couple of years ago, I spent the first 6 months going through every piece of paper, a piece of music I had at every corner, nook and crevice of my house, and got those organized.
Ah.
And then my next big project was doing this all in an Excel file, but not with ABCs, just with like links to the music where I could find it.
Sure.
So now, I mean, this just makes so much sense. So thank you so much for wrapping up the next 6 months of my life into a brand new project.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's nice to have personal tune books as well. I think that is everything I can think of for the tool. Just trying to think of anything I've might have missed. No, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I mean, I think it handles, like I say, I wanted to, handle the, 90% use case. It's not everything that everybody wants. I have people who, they want specific features because they have some, particular thing that they're doing that no one else is doing. And, if I can accommodate them easily, I try to, but sometimes things can be very disruptive, and there are some things I can't do. But the thing to always keep in mind is that this is a PDF file that gets generated. That PDF file can be brought into other tools. So if if you have a license for Adobe Acrobat, it's an Acrobat file. One thing to be aware of if you do that is that the way that the notation is rendered is using a very high resolution bitmap. There's no way to go directly from the web SVG vector format directly to PDF vector format. So we have to basically rasterize it, which is kind of like printing it out to a dot matrix printer essentially internally, and then putting that great big bitmap on the page. So one thing you will notice about the tune books is that they are not small. They aren't massive, but they are big. If you're used to tune books being 10K, 15K, you'll see that like mine, equivalent would be like 300K or 700K. Is that it's not really a big deal these days. They're just a little bit bigger because they essentially are very large bitmaps. They're basically like JPEGs of each tune kind of stamped onto the page. For anything that's not the headers, footers, index page, table of contents, that kind of stuff, that's actual text. But the tunes themselves, if you were to bring it into Acrobat, what you'd see is that you don't have access to each like note as an individual shape like you would in a totally vector-based PDF generator. So that does limit to some extent what you can do inside Acrobat with these files. But I did want to show you one kind of hack. And it's not the most useful hack, to be honest, but it can be useful in some circumstances. So, so you can do the PDF export here, and that goes through my code. So I'm actually like rendering these, into the PDF. I'm putting in my own title pages. I'm putting in my own headers, footers, and all that stuff. I'm generating that file and saving it out. But browsers themselves have their own ability to do PDF generation. They don't have any understanding of, all of the, so for example, if I bring up that one with the, all the headers and footers, right? All of this stuff, this is mine. They don't understand how to make a QR code. But they do understand how to print what's on the page. And by formatting this correctly in a way that the browser can access it and do something intelligent, it is possible, for example, and this could be useful in some cases, is you can actually go to print in your browser and it will just print the tunes to a PDF file. And this PDF file will be a properly vector formatted PDF file because the browser itself has access to that vector format, and the browser can run, I'm limited to what's possible using JavaScript. And right now there's no way to go directly in JavaScript from this highly, compressed vector format directly to PDF vector format, but the browser can. So this is one thing you can do if you just want a really quick and dirty a PDF file, and you don't want to go through my stuff, and you don't care about headers and footers or multiple tunes per page. This will stick one tune per page. The browser doesn't know how to do any of the kind of that splitting. Again, it has no intelligence. I actually measure, I'm actually measuring the tunes and laying them out when I'm doing the multiple tunes per page. So this is an option. What it does buy you is it does buy you the ability to do this kind of thing. So for example, you want it big because you're on stage and you want it sideways. You can in the browser print out in landscape format, right? So this is just like, again, it's a special use case for certain people. They want it like this. I tell them just use the browser print, right? Don't use my PDF generator. You can do things like this in the browser. You were asking about like how to get multiple tunes per page. You can do multiple up using the browser print feature, not my print feature, and it will lay that out for you that way. Okay. So again, these are just some additional options that are just possible on your browser itself, but you're not going to get title pages. You're not going to get indexes. You're not going to get headers and footers, page numbers. You might be able to get page numbers. If there's an option here for page numbers, let's see, headers and footers. Kind of, sort of. But you can play around. Every browser, this is Firefox. Chrome's going to have its own print options. But for example, this is kind of fun. If you put it in landscape and then tell it 2 tunes per page, let's see, wait, 4. Yeah, so you have some interesting possibilities there. And it'll generate the PDF with this format. So I like to show people that because it's like, if you can't do it with my generator, see if the browser itself can, play around with all the options in terms of orientation and tunes per page, and see if you can find a combination that will do what you need. And I think with that is everything I can think of about the product, the tool. So any last questions? All right, everyone. Thanks so much. And Ken, I'll see you tomorrow up in Long Beach.